All right, so we're gonna do a deep dive into a lot of the complex interactions in the game. There'll be a couple separate videos on this. This is the one covering all the characters in the game and their special interactions. If you find the information presented here helpful, I'd appreciate a follow here on Twitch and YouTube as well. And let's dive right into it. So first, some kind of general broad strokes character information there. There's a pool of characters in the game, and there's 15 of each character except the tier 6 characters, of which there's only 10. So that means, like, if somebody has bought 5 good boys, then there's only 5 left in the pool available to find. So the more stuff people are buying makes it a little harder to find it for other players. Whenever you acquire a character from any source, whether you kidnap it, or you buy it, or you knighthood it, it always removes characters from the pool, 1 for a regular or 3 for an upgrade. Likewise, if like you get an upgraded unit with Woggle, even though you only spent 2 units to combine into it, it still removes 3 copies of the character from the pool. But you can still go past the pool with special cases like Kidnap and Evil Twin, but they just won't show up in the shop anymore once the pool is empty. Some special stuff with questing characters is that they are always removed from your pool entirely as soon as you acquire one from any source, even if you like sell it. If you just buy it and sell it immediately, you'll never see it again for the rest of the game. You can still, of course, acquire it by kidnapping. You can actually triple quest units. Normally you can't because you can only get 1, but if you use Evil Twin or Kidnap, you can triple them. If you do triple them, they lose their quest, but you still get the normal tripling treasure. The idea is that you only get 1 treasure from the quest unit, whether it's from completing the quest or from tripling it. If you knight them, or you get an upgraded one from like a Polywoggle or Mix-a-Wizzle, they will still give you a treasure when the quest completes, but they don't get any additional stats because they're already upgraded. The attack queue in the game follows a straight order that most people watching this should already know. Starts on the top left, goes across the top row, then continues across the back row. It doesn't move until it's your turn, and then it only moves if the slot is empty, or the character just attacked, or of course if the character has 0 attack, it'll skip past it, like a Soltec Ancient or something like that. So importantly, that means if you've got like a summon unit, like a baby bear, that attacks into the enemy and then dies, it's going to keep attacking from that same slot before moving on to the next one, so that can affect your positioning decisions. They also have some infinite protection in the game, so that if the same slot attacks 5 times in a row, it will finally just force it to move to the next slot, but this almost never actually comes up. So when something summons, so you've got a Princess Peep or something that is summoning multiple other units, the full summoning order is listed there if you want to make note of it, but the easiest way to like think of it is they always do their first spot first, like where they died at, but then they will preference their current row, top or bottom, and they will preference spawning to the right before spawning to the left. So occasionally this can affect your positioning decisions, so that you can plan and like, okay, this if Trojan Donkey gets hit, it's going to spawn into this space, and that's going to be useful because maybe that's where I want to support to spawn, or something like that there. And Pumpkin is an exception, and we'll get to that a little bit later here. Special notes on Last Breaths. If you've got multiple happening on both sides simultaneously, it will favor the attacking player first. So, like, if you attack a mummy into the enemy good boy, for example, your mummy will activate first and potentially kill their backline before the good boy procs or something like that, right? The other weird thing about Last Breaths, if you've got like multiple happening at the same time because of maybe AoE damage or something like that, they'll actually activate in reverse attack order. So they start at the end and activate backwards there. The example that I give there is that if you take AoE damage that kills like both a Sheep in Wolf's Clothing and the Princess Peep, and maybe the Princess Peep is in slot 4, and the Sheep in Wolf's Clothing is in slot 3, the Peep Last Breath activates first, so those sheep will override the bigger sheep there. So that can occasionally affect your positioning decisions as well. For alignment changes in the game, the hero powers and treasures, so like Beauty and Crowd of Atlas, stuff like that, will take precedence over the alignment changes from spells. So, for example, if you cast Beauty's Influence on a black cat, it'll still be evil if you have Corrupted Heartwood, even though you tried to turn it good there. The game tries to make it so you can only have one source of those alignment changes at a time now, so you can't get both the Crowd of Atlas and Corrupted Heartwood at the same time. You just won't be offered the other treasure when you already have one of them there. Otherwise, in terms of just spell alignments there, it basically, you add up the different sources of alignment. So, like, if a tripled character has 2 evil sources because you cast Evil Twin on it twice, and also cast Beauty's Influence on it once, then it's still evil, because it's got 2 evil and only 1 good change. And that you're only looking at the alignment changes, you ignore the base alignment entirely for this. If there's a tie, then it just becomes its natural alignment instead there, whether that's good, evil, or neutral. So there's a set of characters that have what I've called calculated stats. Could be called like statics buffs or something, aura buffs, something like that. But these characters are Storm King, Princess White, Puff Puff, and Crafty. They all have abilities that give them extra stats. So this importantly means that if you, for example, you cast True Love's Kiss on one of those characters, those stats won't transfer over because they come from the ability. They aren't like permanent stats that are tied to the character. Normally the permanent stats will carry over when you transform, but in this case they aren't permanent stats, they're from the ability, so they won't transfer. Miri's hero power is also another example of these calculated stats for their royals. The really neat thing you can do with those calculated stats, though, is that if you got like Mirror Mirror, that treasure that creates copies of units in your front row, if you've got like a Storm King, for example, and then it dies, it'll come back not as a 1/1, but like, you know, a 50/50 or whatever it was, because all of its stats are coming from the ability, which it still has. That applies to inside a croc bait too, so if you eat like a Storm King inside a croc, it'll keep growing, whereas if you swallowed like a Wizard's Familiar, it wouldn't keep growing because those are permanent stats rather than stats from an ability there. Okay, so that's the general stuff. On to the specific characters here. So Cinderella's counter for her quest will tick down before the actual effect of the spell happens. So you can like eat her with a Feed the Kraken spell or something like that, and you'll still complete the quest. So you'll complete the quest and then she'll die, basically. This is a little bit bugged with Miri right now, where if you consume a Cinderella in this way, you won't get the Miri buff immediately, but instead you'll get 2 Miri buffs the next time you triple a royal. So it gets weirdly delayed. So it still works, it's just a little bugged. That'll probably be fixed down the road. Just one note on Fanny that is kind of overlooked, especially by new players a lot, is that she is a dwarf herself, so you can have a Fanny in front of another Fanny and still receive that support for bonus stats. You don't, and that applies to all supports, of course. You don't need to run them backline. Sometimes it's still useful to run them frontline there. I'll skip over the like upgrades for units here. I'm gonna kind of assume most people watching know the upgrades, but all that information is available on the screen if anyone doesn't know the more confusing upgrades. So that'll have, you can catch that as we're skimming past it there. So special stuff for Polywoggle. Their slay, like the level of unit they turn into, is based on your current level at the time they slay. So it's going to be one higher than that. Some effects, like for Glory, will be activated the next turn, so you can level up and then immediately get a higher level character. But Polly is based on the time it slays specifically there. All these transformation effects are always pulled from the pool of characters. So if there's more characters bought of a specific type, Polly is less likely to transform into that character. And that applies to any transformation effect like this, or any random summons. If you activate the Polly multiple times by having it in front of a Baba Yaga, that doesn't matter, it doesn't do anything for you. And if the Polywoggle survives the slay, then it's immediately transformed to the new character on your board and fully heals as well. Usually that'll only happen, of course, if it's got some big health stats, health buffs from something, either a support or something like Embiggening Stone. The weird thing about that, though, if you remember what we talked about the attack queue earlier, is that normally it would stay on the same slot, but when Polywoggle transforms, it actually does still move to the next slot there. And yes, Jordy, the Easter egg will still be offered with Horde Dragon when you triple Humpty Dumpty. That is correct. So back to Polly there. If you make a random Polly from like a Trojan Donkey, or you steal a Polly from an opponent with a Southern Siren, it doesn't exist past the battle, so it can still theoretically transform into a new character, but you won't get to keep it because it wasn't your character past the battle anyway, so... Unfortunately, the random donkey summoned Pollys can't give you free characters, though it would be fun. On to Ancient Mummy. If they are given Slay with like a River Witch Mermaid, their ability doesn't count as a Slay even if it kills something. Slay is only if you attack into something and kill them with that attack. Brave Princess is a little bit weird with her Slay. Once she's completed her quest, she like kind of acts like she doesn't have Slay anymore, right? But she still does have Slay as far as Shadow Assassin and Bad Moon are concerned. So if you've got Bad Moon, she'll get the stat buff when she slays, and if you've got Shadow Assassin will increase their stats when Brave Princess slays. But she does not count as having Slay for any other purpose. For example, the Cloak of Assassins treasure, she does not get the +3/+3 from that. So that's a little bit wonky. I don't know if they'll change that at some point because it's very confusing, but that is how it currently works. So Ogre Princess, like Polywoggle, it's based on your current level at the time the Ogre Princess slays. If your hand is full, the free character will just be added to the shop instead, which is the standard behavior for any effect like that that gives you free stuff you don't have room for. Notably for Ogre Princess, the free characters will have priority before the normal shop is filled. So yeah, if you've got like an Ogre Princess that got many slays in front of a Baba Yaga or something, then the whole shop could be filled with free characters, potentially. Weirdly, this works a little differently than anything else that adds stuff to the shop, in that characters added to the shop with Ogre Princess will still benefit from stuff like Fairy Tale and Gingerbread Party. I think that is a bug, so that'll probably be changed at some point, but that's how it currently works there. Yeah, if your shop is locked and you run out of room in your shop, then tough luck, you've already locked those units, so it won't have room to fill there. The other weird quirk of Ogre Princess, which is also probably a bug, is that you can actually receive multiple of the same quest character. If you get multiple Ogre Slays at the same time, she can give you several quest characters of the same type, which is normally not possible, but that's cute that you could get like 2 Lancelots in the shop, for example. Okay, moving on, we got Romeo and Juliet. If they die at the same time, Juliet does still get resummoned, so like if a Doom Breath attacks into them and kills both of them, Juliet still comes back. Sometimes that could actually be a positioning idea to make sure you're like Juliet is one in front of your Romeo or whatever. And how it determines Juliet's stats there, as long as any Juliet that you control has died, every Romeo from there forth will summon a Juliet. So if you've got one Juliet in front that dies, and you've got 3 Romeos in the back, they'll each be able to summon a Juliet. It's fine. And if multiple Juliets have died, notably also including Juliets that summoned, right? So let's say you've got a Juliet up front that dies, you've got a Romeo backline that dies, summon that Juliet, then that Juliet dies. It'll be based on which one has the highest attack. So if you start with a base Juliet as a 7/7, a regular Romeo will resummon that as a 14/14, and then if that dies before your second Romeo dies, then she'll be resummoned again as a 21/21. So she can actually stack those stats multiple times in some cases. But sometimes the highest attack thing could actually burn you a little bit. If the resummoned Juliet attacks into a poisoned apple tree, you may not want that one to be the one resummoned, but now it's the one with the highest attack, so you get a resummon of like a 21/5 or something like that, depending on the situation. So that could be a little sad, but okay. So Shadow Assassin, the unit that grows with slays. She will grow with every separate slay effect. So if you've got like 3 that happen from one slay because you've got a mermaid plus a sad Dracula plus a slay unit, then Shadow Assassin sees all of those as separate slay effects and gets 3 total buffs from it. Sleeping Princess is kind of like the calculated stat stuff we talked about earlier, but works just a little differently. In that when you wake her up, she basically transforms into another unit. That is the Awoken Princess with 8/8 stats. So if you then further transform it, you won't keep that +0/+8 that you got from waking her up there. You can wake her up with a Mix-a-Whizzle that'll transform her to something else and then transform her back. And she won't be woken up if she gets a random targeted spell from Genie's Wish or Loki. Those still won't wake her up, even though they are targeted spells. You need to target the spell on her yourself there. Trojan Donkey is a fun little animal that can summon a bunch of random nonsense. As mentioned earlier, summon stuff is always pulled from the pool there. One like special case that doesn't work out favorably with donkeys if you've got like another 1 health unit that dies to falling stars at the start of the fight, and then you hit the donkey at the same time with the falling stars. The spot won't actually be free in time to summon something new there, unfortunately, but that was potentially an interesting tech when Grimsoul was in the game, but that's gone from the game now, so I don't think you would really want to do that anyway, but it doesn't work if you wanted to do it. Also worth emphasizing that Trojan Donkey cannot summon quest units or another Trojan Donkey, and summon units don't get the start of brawl bonuses. Like if you summon an Ashwood Elm, it's only going to be a 0/20. It's not going to give the bonus to trees and become a 20/20 or whatever. Alright, so we've got Copycat next here. The Last Breath effects behind the Copycat do proc in attack order, so even though if you have multiple Last Breath units that die to AoE, they happen in reverse order, Copycat Last Breaths happen in attack order normally. So you will usually have your Copycat front row with a 2 Last Breath units behind it in slot 5 and slot 6, so slot 5 will happen first and then slot 6. And as far as Donkey summoning Wombats goes, I'm pretty sure they can. I did see a reference to someone saying they were able to summon Wombats with Donkey in the past, so my understanding is that Donkey can summon Wombats, but not itself. I would be happy to see more testing on that, but that's my current understanding of it there. So the attack order gets extra weird if Copycat is upgraded, where they will proc once each in attack order, so it'll be 5, 6, and then it goes back 5, 6 again a second time. And if during that process one of them dies, like say you've got a mummy behind your copycat that kills an enemy mummy that kills your other mummy or whatever, then it won't proc. It's not queued up. It'll only proc if it's still alive by the time it gets to it again there. And one other special niche, like ultra niche case for Copycat there is if it's good, because like you've got a Crown of Atlas, for example, and you have a Fairy Godmother, and Copycat dies while attacking, Godmother will proc immediately. So like the Copycat dying and being a good unit means Godmother gives a +0/+2 buff to all your other good units. But this is notable because it buffs your units behind it immediately, so like a Friendly Spirit or a Good Boy gets that extra health before they activate, which is a nice little bonus there. Okay, Court Wizard. So they get their free retaliatory attacks, but they don't get those for dying to spellcast. So if your royals die to like an enemy smite at the beginning of the fight or something like that, that will not activate them. Likewise, if something is transformed into like a statue, like from a Medusa attack or a Pigify, that also won't count as a royal anymore, therefore won't trigger the counter attack. One weird thing about Court Wizards is if you've got multiple Court Wizards, they, as far as I can tell, always attack in the same order. And it's not based on positioning, how much attack strength they have, or when you bought the Court Wizard. So I don't know what it's based on, but it seems consistent. So once you know which one's attacking first, you can maybe plan your buffs around that or something like that. It usually doesn't matter much, but it is just another weird quirk there. Additionally, if you've got a like wizard battle where you've got Court Wizards on both sides of the field, then all of one side's Court Wizards will finish their retaliation before the other sides activate there. Wizard gunfights indeed. So, Fairy Godmother, so if you've got like a summon unit, like a baby bear or something like that, the summoned unit will immediately receive the buff from the first tier baby bear that just died. But if Godmother and a summon unit die at the same time, the summon will not receive that buff. Additionally, if Godmother and, like, let's say Godmother and two other good units all die at the same time, Godmother will only proc exactly once for herself and not for the other good units that died at the same time, regardless of where they're positioned. Lightning Dragon has the same kind of weird attack quirk that Court Wizard has. I don't know what determines their order, but it seems to stay consistent once it's set. Of course, transforming it by tripling it can change that, but otherwise it stays the same there. And another weird case with Lightning Dragon is if something causes a Lightning Dragon to spawn before the actual fight has begun. For example, if Falling Stars hits a Trojan Donkey and that summons a Lightning Dragon, then it still gets its immediate free attack at the beginning of the game. So, clearly something you should plan around, right? Leave an empty space, use a Ring of Meteors to proc your Trojan Donkey, summon a Lightning Dragon, free attack, easy. This game has a lot of very specific situation interactions like that that are kind of fun. Okay, Puff Puff. You can't triple Puffs, but you can get them upgraded via Knighthood, or if you transform another upgraded character into a Puff Puff. And just like other upgraded characters, an upgraded Puff Puff is still going to have double its base stats and double its abilities, so when it dies it gives +2/+2 to all Puffs instead of +1/+1. And like we talked about earlier, Puff Puffs have calculated stats, so if you've got a 100/100 Puff Puff in your front line with Mirror Mirror, it'll resummon as like a 94/94 instead of a 1/1, so... in fact, in a recent tournament, one of the winning boards was Puff Puffs plus Mirror Mirror, so that was pretty cute to see for sure. Okay, River Witch Mermaid, the characters that she's supporting are fully treated like they have Slay now, so they will get buffs from like Cloak of the Assassin, for example. Soltech Ancient, which protects the 2 units behind it from damage. There's 2 special cases for that. Even if units are taking 0 damage, that still counts as damage taken for stuff like Trojan Donkey and Broccoli. So once again, another cute tech with Trojan Donkey. Donkey has some of the weirdest special cases in the game, for sure. The other thing with the Ancient is that the protection stays active until like the current set of effects are completely resolved. So like a Doom Breath attacks into your Soul Tech and kills your Soul Tech, it still protects the units behind it even though it died. Or if a bunch of shots from like an enemy's Ancient Sarcophagus are fired off and kills the Soul Tech right away, the other shots still can't hurt the units behind the Soul Tech until that current like queue of effects resolves. So they keep protecting for just a little while after they're dead until another unit attacks again, basically. Angry. So they buff other dwarves when they take damage. If you've got like AoE damage that would be killing another dwarf or an Echo would, Angry will buff them in time to save them, but only if Angry is earlier in the attack order. So the attack order actually matters for that there. Which is definitely a little bit of an odd one, but yeah, so like if you cast like Ring of Meteors, right? That's a good thing, like good example use case of this. If you got the treasure Ring of Meteors and you've got an Angry and you want to run a 1/1 Echo Wood on your team, you can do that. Just make sure the Angry is ahead in the attack order, which is normally where you want them anyway. And the Angry will proc the stat buffs that the Echo Wood will see before the Echo Wood dies. A good use for Soltech Ancient most commonly is to protect against Doom Breath. That's the primary use of it. It can still be helpful as a tree that gets buffs or protect against other spells and AoE effects and stuff like that, but Doom Breath is the big one. You tech it in to protect against that situation. So, if you're hit with an enemy Cupid on one of your slay creatures, like maybe they hit a Brave Princess in your back row, and it attacks a unit in your front row and slays them, that's still a slay. Even though your unit is slaying your own unit, it's still cool, you still get the slay activation. The other weird case with Cupid is if they've got enough attack that they directly kill an enemy unit. So, like, maybe they've got a 100/10 unit in the backline and your 10 damage Cupid just kills them immediately. And they get resummoned with the Phoenix Feather. That resummoned character is still considered the same character, and they haven't done their friend attack because of Cupid, so they will still remember that and immediately attack a friendly character after being resummoned with Phoenix Feather, which could be pretty nasty. Lancelot, in order to actually complete their quest, they need to be in play and alive with the appropriate stats. So if they get bonus stats while dying via Slay, or getting those bonus stats while dying and getting a Charon buff, they aren't in play and alive anymore, so you don't get the treasure until the next fight that you run them in there. Monster Book, just like Deck of Many Things, will cast spells from a limited pool that is all stuff that kind of has direct combat effects. So you've got the weaker stuff like Falling Stars and Earthquake, and so on and so forth into Smite and Pigamorph there. So this does not include any targeted spells, and it does not include Cat's Call or Fog. So those are kind of the combat spells that are not in the Monster Book wheelhouse there. Additionally, whenever anything is random, so this applies to like Trojan Donkey as well, they are capped by your current level. So you cannot cast tier 6 spells with a Monster Book if you're only level 5, for example. So in that case, you can't cast Smite and Pigamorph, you can only cast the spells before it there. If you're only level 2, which there are no level 2 combat spells, you'll still be able to cast the tier 3 combat spells, so Falling Stars and Earthquake there. Which, I don't know if that's actually possible. It's possible to have a Deck of Many Things at level 2. I don't know if it's possible to have a Monster Book at level 2. That would be quite something. I don't think so, no. But if you could be, then it would still cast tier 3 spells. But most notably, this means that like Monster Book, as well as Deck of Many Things, are not very exciting on Peter Pants most of the time, because you will only be casting Falling Stars and Earthquake with them. Although the flip side of that is maybe you want to cast Falling Stars because you've got like Darkwood Creeper or something. In that case, your Monster Book is a 50% chance to cast it, and maybe that's value there. Okay, so unlike the interaction with just a Falling Stars on its own, if a Monster Book dies, activates its last breath, and casts Falling Stars that hits a Trojan Donkey, that space is now free for the summon. So that's another cute tech. You're only at level 3, maybe you're Peter Pants, but you got a donkey and a Monster Book that's got a 50% chance to summon something from the donkey. So, I mean, I appreciate that there's just so many spots in this game that you can bring in bizarre little tech like that, and it is sometimes even a good idea, but a lot of times it's still fun even if it's not a good idea. Okay, so onward to the Rotten Apple Tree. When it reduces the health of an incoming attack, that happens after any bonuses, so from like an Oni King or Spear of Achilles, those will buff the attacker first, and then their health gets dunked down to 1 from the apple tree there. Rotten Apple Tree also has a bit of an odd bug that's also true for the Poison Apple spell, where essentially if a unit's been poisoned in this way, so their max health has been reduced to 1, and then anything that, any other character that was giving them a buff or supporting them at all, so this includes like a Heartwood Elder supporting a tree, it includes a Mad Mim, or it includes a Rainbow Unicorn giving a buff to a good character. If any of those supporting units die, then the poisoned character also just immediately dies. They basically spontaneously combust, even if their stats didn't change at all. So that's just a weird little bug with the recalculation there that's existed for quite a while, so I assume it's a pretty hard one for the devs to fix, but that's how it currently works. And if you ever wonder why your character kind of like randomly dies there for no reason after attacking a 0-attack apple tree or something, that's the reason why. Okay, Southern Siren, one of my favorite units. The characters she steals will still be buffed by any global effects you have, like Ring of Rage or Monkey's Paw. A stolen quest character, like Lancelot or Hercules, that still manages to finish the quest on your side will give you a treasure. And that is really fun. It's pretty rare, but it's a lot of fun when it happens. Notably, the timing of this can matter. Like if someone had like a Lancelot that already completed at the beginning of the fight, and you steal it, they no longer have the quest, so it won't be able to proc the quest on your side because it doesn't have the quest anymore. But one time I did have an enemy Southern Siren steal 2 copies of my Hercules, and both of their Hercules finished the quest and mine didn't. And it was very sad, but also hilarious. Okay, if you steal a character with calculated stats, like Puff Puff, for example, then their stat line will be based on your status, not the enemy's status. So maybe the enemy's Puff Puff was a 20/20, but you haven't been running Puffs this game, so it's only going to be a 7/7 when it comes to your side. However, if the character that you steal has gained some sort of temporary stats, like a Queen of Hearts, for example, it will still have those temporary stats when it comes onto your side there. Okay, Wombats pulls from the pool, just like Donkey and stuff. Just like Donkey can't summon quest units or another Wombats, and as far as I know, they can summon Donkey. So you can theoretically have Wombat into Donkey into Wombat into Donkey, but I've never seen this. But as far as I know, that's possible. And just like Donkey as well, the summoned units will not proc any of the Start a Brawl effects there. Doom Breath, if you give Doom Breath Slay, like your set Dracula, for example, it will count as slaying multiple units. So if it kills 3 units with its attack, that counts as 3 separate Slay procs. And it'll get the buff 3 times in that situation. Echowood can grow very, very large. And essentially, Echo Woods will see all bonus stats that were not present at the start of the brawl and were not provided by another Echo Woods ability. So, like, you've got a Bossy, for example, that just gives stats to everything on the board already. The Echo Wood doesn't see that because those stats were already there when the fight started. But if you've got something like Ivory Owl, which gives +2/+2 to your board when the fight starts, the Echo Wood will see those stats. And likewise with the Echo Wood there, if you've got 2 Echo Woods in play, they will see the direct stats gained by the other Echo Wood. Like Ivory Owl is again a good example there. So the first Echo Wood and the second Echo Wood will each see the other's +2/+2 they gain from the permanent buff that is directly targeting the Echo Wood, but they just won't see the stat gains from the other Echo Wood's ability. Which, of course, makes sense. Like, if you had that run freely, they would infinitely boost each other, but the other way the game could have worked would be to make it so that they see each other once, but they don't do that. They don't see the other Echo Wood's ability at all. One other niche case that the Echo Wood will see is that Ambrosia doesn't actually affect the unit and upgrade it until the fight begins. So whatever stats a unit gains from being turned into a gold unit with Ambrosia for the fight will be seen by Echo Wood, and it will gain bonus stats that way. And Ambrosia happens first, so that actually gives Echo Wood some stats before anything else has a chance to dunk it, potentially. Additionally, Echo Wood will see stats gained from calculated stats characters, again, like Puff Puff or Storm King, that get summoned by Mirror Mirror Crocbait, because like it treats them as just the base stats until it comes onto the board in this case, and then its ability activates, it gets all of those stats for value. On down to the Great Pumpkin King, or Pump King, as many of us like to call it there. So I mentioned earlier that the Pumpkin works different for the summoning order. How Pumpkin works in full is that for every evil character you have that has died during that brawl, it will summon an evil character 1 level lower than the character that died. And that includes the Pumpkin itself, assuming it's evil, which it normally is, but you could cast Beauty's Influence on it, technically. So the thing that confuses a lot of people here is that token units are level 1, and level 2 characters, there's nothing lower than level 2 for the Pumpkin to summon. So if you've got like Black Cats on your board, or a pig summon from 3 Big Pigs, those do not count as dead units for Pumpkin because there's nothing lower level for it to summon. So those won't summon anything. Likewise, characters that are hit by Medusa or Pigomorph are transformed and no longer the evil unit anymore, so there's nothing for them to summon from those units as well. If you end up with more characters dead than there is room available, normally only possible if you're running multiple Pumpkin Kings at the same time, then the summons that it preferences will be the higher level units there. So if it'll fill in all the 5s and then the 4s and then the 3s and then the 2s, basically, if there's enough room for it there until it runs out of room. Yeah, so as mentioned, the position summoning for Pumpkin is different than normal summoning rules. It is not based on where the pumpkin is, it's based on where the associated evil character died instead. So if you have a unit in slot 1 that died, that was evil, of course, then the Pumpkin will summon that unit of 1 level lower than that one in that same slot. This is most notably important for something like Sting or Magic Sword, where you want to make sure you get more value out of that slot. So you run an evil unit in that slot, and then when Pumpkin dies, it summons another unit back into that same slot, so it gets value from like that sword again. So Robinwood, when it says the weakest unit, it gives its buff to the weakest unit on your side. That means the character with the lowest attack value. Likewise, strongest is highest attack value. So if there's a tie between weakest, then the one that's considered weaker is the one that is a lower tier of character. So if you've got a Sherwood Sure Shot and a Good Boy with the same amount of attack, Robinwood will always give the buff to the Sure Shot, not the Good Boy. If it's tied, for example, you've got two Good Boys that have the same attack, then it's chosen completely randomly. There's no way to control it based on position or one having more health or by order. None of that matters. It's just completely random if there's a full-on tie at that point. Notably, Robinwood does proc after Ashwood Elm and Shoulder Fairies, but procs before Round Table and those spells, which can notably include Fog. That can matter for that unit that Robinwood ends up buffing. Could be a ranged unit that was strong and got fogged, and then you buff them back up to 16 or whatever. And Storm King, we of course already covered with the calculated stats stuff. They get cool effects if they're inside a croc or mirror, basically. So there's some neat tech you can do with those. And yeah, that about wraps it up for all the characters here. Hopefully that was interesting and informative. If it was, you should drop a follow here on YouTube or on my Twitch stream to catch my content live. Everything in here I've tested and verified as much as possible, so hopefully everything I've said is accurate. It's of course still possible I made a mistake, but the most accurate, up-to-date version of all this information will be linked below. So I've got a nice database of all of this stuff, and yeah, that'll be continually updated as new information is found. And yeah, let me know in the comments or whatever if you have any other cool interactions that you know of that we haven't covered here. And look forward to future videos where we cover, for example, treasures, as you can see on screen here already, and heroes and spells and such there. So we got a few more videos covering this data, and yeah, thanks for watching.